The music was still playing when I returned. Same playlist. Same laughing voices behind the hallway walls. But something had shifted, like the air itself had thickened. There was lipstick on the rim of the glass I'd left behind. Still warm. No one noticed me at first. Not until I stood in the doorway and saw her, laughing. Not nervously. Not awkwardly. Laughing like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just called me a worthless loser in front of a dozen people. Like I hadn't just stood there, blinking, pretending her words didn't gut me while everyone else stared at their drinks. It had only been 6 minutes. 6 minutes since I'd said, "You know what? You're right." 6 minutes since I dropped my coat on the porch, stepped into the cold, and walked 3 blocks toward absolutely nowhere. And then something pulled me back. Not anger. Not pride. Curiosity. I needed to see what I was leaving behind. Needed confirmation that she didn't regret a thing. And I got it. Because when I walked back in, they all went quiet. One of her friends, tall, sharp bangs, green nails, looked down like she'd been caught stealing. Another sipped rose too fast and started coughing. No one said anything. Except one. She stood, crossed the room, slid a folded napkin into my hand without saying a word. When I opened it outside under the streetlight, it had 3 words scribbled in eyeliner. Check her phone. That was the exact second I stopped being her loser and started becoming something else entirely. I didn't go back inside. Not right away. I stood on the porch of that perfect little house, twinkle lights glowing like nothing was wrong, with a napkin in my hand that suddenly weighed as much as a brick. Check her phone, it said, written fast, like the person didn't want to get caught. Lipstick smeared. Smelled like gin. I stared at it, like maybe there was some hidden second message. But that was it. 3 words that turned my ribs into ice. Here's the part where most people would storm in, grab the phone, demand answers. That's not me. I'm not built for explosions. I'm built for slow burns. Silent rooms. Holding things in until they rot. So I stood there in the driveway for a while, pretending not to panic. I could hear her voice inside, laughing again. Carefree. Confident. The same voice that used to whisper about starting a farm in Oregon and raising chickens. The same voice that used to cry when we watched Pixar movies. Now it was cutting through the air like nothing mattered. Like I didn't matter. She didn't notice I was gone. She didn't notice I was back. Or maybe she didn't care. I waited until the party started to break up. Until the clink of wine glasses turned into murmured goodbyes and doors creaking open. I stood in the shadows across the street like some haunted neighbor no one talks to. When the last car pulled away and the porch light dimmed, I crossed back over. Inside, the house was quiet. She was curled up on the couch, half asleep, phone resting on her chest like it belonged there more than I ever did. I watched her breathe for a minute. I know how pathetic that sounds, but I did. I watched her, and for a second I almost convinced myself I'd imagined it all. The insult, the silence, the napkin. But then she stirred, murmured something I didn't catch, and turned over. The phone slid to the cushion. Unlocked. I don't know if it was a glitch, or if her face had just unlocked it automatically before she passed out. All I know is, it was open. I picked it up, and within 10 seconds, I felt the floor beneath my entire life give out. There wasn't one message. There were dozens. All pinned, hidden in muted conversations, cleverly disguised under names like dog walker and tutor. But the content? Not subtle, not even close. Photos, plans, inside jokes that didn't belong to me, and a name that came up more than once. Toby. Who the hell is Toby? Before I could read more, she stirred again. I locked the phone and set it gently back down. My hands were shaking. Not from rage. Not even heartbreak. It was something deeper. It was clarity. For the first time in years, I felt completely, painfully awake. I didn't wake her. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because this wasn't just some random betrayal. This was orchestrated. And something told me Toby wasn't just a fling. He was a thread that, if pulled, might unravel a whole life built on lies. The next morning, I played dumb. She was still in bed when I made coffee. Same mug. Same smile. The same lips that, just a few hours ago, had whispered someone else's name in a chat thread she never thought I'd see. She didn't ask where I went after the party. Didn't bring up what she said in front of everyone. It was like the evening had been wiped from her memory. Or worse, it meant so little to her that it didn't even register as something worth addressing. The kind of amnesia only guilt-free people seem to master. I wasn't ready to confront her. Not yet. The old version of me, the one she thought was still here, would have sulked or begged or exploded. But that guy was dissolving fast. I wasn't about to blow this moment by giving her a warning. So I smiled back, stirred her coffee, pretended I didn't notice she'd barely touched me in weeks, even when we slept in the same bed. Pretended not to see the way her body angled slightly away from mine when we passed in the hallway. Pretended I didn't know about Toby, but I was counting on her not changing her routine. She always left her laptop open in the mornings while doing her skincare routine. I knew her passwords. She never changed them. Overconfident people rarely do. While she hummed in the bathroom with a clay mask drying on her face, I sat down in front of her MacBook like I was checking the weather. But I didn't open the weather. I opened her calendar. That's when the pit in my stomach turned into a black hole. There he was, Toby Green. Not a Tinder match. Not a stranger. Not a bartender or ex from a city I'd never visited. He was her former boss. Not just any boss. The one who gave her her first real job 5 years ago. The one she told me was intense and handsy and always pushing boundaries. The one I comforted her about. The one I almost messaged once to defend her before she told me to let it go. They had a recurring event labeled Client Strategy Catch-Up every Thursday at 7 p.m. for the last 2 months. Which was weird, considering Clarabelle left that company over a year ago. I checked her Gmail. Hidden under folders labeled legal docs and receipts were dozens of email threads with him. Buried just deep enough to avoid casual discovery, but not deep enough for someone desperate. Some were harmless, documents, pitches, proposals. Others bled between personal and professional in the most uncomfortable ways. Remember that hotel in Denver? Can't stop thinking about your hands. Same time next week? And then, a file. A PDF. Titled simply, Escape Plan. My pulse spiked. I clicked. What I saw made the room tilt. It wasn't just affair logistics. It was a full-on document. Dates, finances, divorce timelines, my name under complications, and even a draft message to my family. It was like they were project managing the collapse of my life, like a marketing rollout. And the final line? Denton can be convinced to leave quietly if he feels like it's his idea. I sat there, frozen, hearing the water in the bathroom shut off. I closed the laptop, placed it exactly where it had been, and walked out to the porch with my coffee like nothing had happened. But inside, I wasn't a man unraveling. I was a man reloading. The next few days felt like walking on broken glass. Except I had memorized where every shard was. I moved carefully, deliberately. I cooked breakfast like usual. I watered her plants. I even asked her how her meetings were going, watching her face twitch just slightly every time I did. She thought she had the upper hand. That was good. I needed her to. The truth is, I didn't know how long I could hold it. Not just the secret of what I'd seen, but the weight of pretending I hadn't. Every conversation we had was now a performance, but she didn't realize I'd changed roles. I wasn't the silent partner anymore. I wasn't the man who asked if I was too sensitive when she took little digs in front of her friends. No, I had started documenting everything. I created a private folder, encrypted and mirrored to the cloud. Screenshots, PDFs. I even took photos of her printed notes when she wasn't home. There was a list on her desk, handwritten, titled Messaging Strategy. Under it, in bullet points, was a breakdown of how she'd positioned the divorce. She'd written phrases like, irreconcilable values, emotional distance. He's a good person, just not my person anymore. She was practicing how to bury me gracefully. Like I was a dying PR story, she just needed to massage before going public. I sat there on the edge of the bed that night, watching her sleep. Her breathing was soft, calm, innocent even. But I knew that under her pillow was a phone with entire conversations planning the slow dismantling of our life together. What kept me awake wasn't rage, it was how calculated it all was. She hadn't made a mistake. She hadn't fallen into temptation. She had architected this. And then, something strange happened. She started acting nice. Not fake nice. Not sugarcoating or overcompensating. But the kind of warm attention I hadn't felt from her in over a year. She made me breakfast 2 mornings in a row. She left a sticky note on my laptop that said, "Hope your day is productive, love." She even brought home my favorite lemon scones from the bakery she used to say was too far and too expensive. At first, I thought she was feeling guilty. But then I remembered the PDF. The timeline. She wasn't backpedaling. She was setting the stage. She was giving me a runway to feel safe, to feel like I was healing. So when the conversation came, it would make sense. She wanted to be able to say, I thought we were finally in a good place, but he still chose to walk away. So I gave her what she wanted. One night, after dinner, I stood in the kitchen drying dishes while she scrolled on her phone. I glanced up and said casually, I know we've had some distance lately, but I've been thinking a lot and I think I'm part of the problem. She looked up, blinked. What do you mean? I don't think I've been enough, I said quietly. For you. For this version of us. I don't want to hold you back. She put her phone down. Her lips parted, but no words came out. I think maybe we've just grown into different people, I added. And maybe that's okay. She stared at me like she wasn't sure whether to cry or start writing this down. And just like that, I saw it, the flash of relief. She thought it was working. She thought the script was writing itself. That was the moment I knew I could finish this on my terms. But the next move wasn't mine. It came from someone else entirely, and it cracked everything open in a way none of us were ready for. Because the next night, at exactly 11:42 p.m., Toby messaged me. The message came in quietly. No fanfare. Just a soft ping and a preview that read, I know this is weird, but... At first, I thought it was spam. Some phishing thing. But then I saw the name. Toby Green. Sent from his personal email. The one listed in those calendar invites. The one Clarabelle thought I'd never see. I didn't open it right away. My heart was pounding too loud. I closed the tab. Stood up. Paced around the living room like someone waiting for a fire to start. Then I sat back down, stared at the screen, and clicked it open. Subject. Not trying to start drama. Body. Hey Denton. You don't know me personally, and I know I probably shouldn't be reaching out, but I think there's been a misunderstanding, and I'd rather clear it up directly before things get out of hand. I never meant to interfere in your relationship. Clarabelle told me you two were separated. We've only seen each other a few times recently. Always professional until recently, and I didn't realize the full context. I've backed off. I've told her I'm not comfortable being involved until things are completely over. If she hasn't told you about the situation, I guess now she will. Again, sorry. This isn't how I thought this would play out. Just thought you should know where I stand. Toby. I reread it 5 times. It didn't make sense. She told him we were separated? We lived in the same house. Slept in the same bed. Ate the same dinners. I just made her blueberry pancakes 3 mornings ago. It wasn't the betrayal that got me this time. It was the lies behind the lies. Because based on his tone, Toby wasn't some manipulative predator. He sounded uncomfortable, like he was trying to step away, like he'd already pulled the plug, which meant Clarabelle had lost control and didn't know it yet. That was the first real crack in her narrative. She was still moving the chess pieces like she had the board memorized, but her queen had just wandered off and sent me a warning email. I didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, I did what I always do. I sat with it. Let it simmer. Watched the bubbles form on the edges of my anger, but didn't let it boil over. I wasn't ready to use what I knew. Not until I understood why she told him we were separated. What was the play? Sympathy? Control? Was she trying to lock him in by making me disposable? Later that night, Clarabelle was sitting at the dining table doing something on Canva, probably building a mood board for some client's pitch deck. I walked over, leaned against the doorframe, and asked, Hey, did you ever hear from your old boss again? Toby, right? She didn't even flinch. Didn't glance up. No, not since that coffee catch-up last month. Just curious. He was always kind of intense. That made her pause. Her eyes flicked up for just a second, just long enough to register that I was digging. Yeah, intense the right word. I nodded like it was nothing and left her there, stewing in a silence she hadn't expected. She didn't know what I knew. And now I had a decision to make. Do I blow it all up now, while she's still convinced she's puppeteering the narrative? Or do I wait? Let her twist deeper into her own fiction until the truth hits like a wrecking ball. Turns out, the decision was made for me. Because the next day, while Clarabelle was at yoga, my phone rang. An unknown number. I almost didn't pick up. But when I did, the voice on the other end said, Is this Denton? My name's Lydia. I don't know how to say this, but I think my husband might be having an affair with your wife. At first, I thought it was a scam. A prank. Some twisted coincidence. My mind couldn't connect the idea that this calm, almost apologetic voice on the other end of the phone was real. That she had a name. A life. A story. Lydia, I repeated cautiously. And your husband? Toby Green, she said. Just like that. Not a hint of doubt or hesitation. She didn't ask if it was a bad time or if I was sitting down. She just dropped the name like a brick through a windshield. I sat down on the edge of the couch, one hand over my mouth, the other gripping the phone too tightly. I wasn't even looking for anything, she continued. It was just, God, it was dumb. I needed to print something and used his iPad. Didn't even think about checking his messages. But the preview showed a calendar alert that said, Clara Strategy Sync, Thursday, 7 p.m. And that didn't make sense. Because, you see, Toby's been working remotely from home on Thursdays. With me. In the same house. Clara, I said under my breath. I know that's not her real name, Lydia said quickly. I did some digging. I reverse-searched an email confirmation for a restaurant reservation he made last week and saw her name on the guest list. Clarabelle, I found your name linked to hers on a wedding registry site. That's how I got your number. Her voice broke slightly on the last sentence. It caught me off guard. This wasn't just some woman lashing out or playing detective. This was someone whose life was being cracked open in real time, just like mine had been. I felt a horrible mixture of comfort and guilt. Comfort in knowing I wasn't crazy, that what I suspected was real, that Clarabelle hadn't just slipped up, she'd built an entire side reality. And guilt, because Lydia was clearly still processing what I'd had days to sit with. I'm sorry, I said quietly. I didn't know he was married. She gave a hollow laugh. Neither did Clarabelle, apparently. We talked for nearly an hour. She told me about the hotel bills, the Apple Watch pings from unfamiliar addresses, the receipts for dinners she hadn't attended. I told her about the PDF, the napkin, the emails buried under receipts. It wasn't just an affair. It was a coordinated rewrite of two lives, two timelines, two people carefully minimized, packaged, and archived like forgotten projects. At some point in that conversation, we stopped talking about them and started talking about ourselves. How did we end up here? How long had we been pretending? What were we ignoring before it all broke? I'll admit something I'm not proud of. I started to like Lydia. Not in a romantic way, not yet. But in a you're the only person on earth who understands the shape of this bruise kind of way. There was something about the way she spoke, calm but trembling beneath it, that made me realize how much I'd been bottling up. How much I'd let slide. How much Clarabelle had trained me to believe I deserved less. And Lydia? She wasn't angry. Not really. She was tired. Exhausted from keeping up the act. From carrying the weight of someone else's double life like it was her own shame to bear. Before we hung up, she asked, "What are you going to do?" I didn't answer at first. Then I said, "Nothing. Not yet." Because something had shifted again. Clarabelle thought I was spiraling, emotionally wrecked, vulnerable, primed for the exit she had scripted in her calendar. But I wasn't spiraling. I was plotting. And now, I had a partner in the shadows. The very next morning, Clarabelle asked if I wanted to do a weekend getaway, just the two of us. Somewhere quiet, she said. You've been tense lately. I thought it'd help. She was trying to speed up the script. I could see it all over her face. She thought I was cracking, that I might break clean if she offered a soft place to land. But I smiled. I said I'd love that. And the whole time, I was texting Lydia under the table. Let's meet. I think I know how we end this. We chose a coffee shop 20 minutes outside the city, one of those places where no one talks above a whisper and the baristas wear beanies even in summer. I got there first. Corner table, back wall, clear view of the door. I didn't touch my drink. I didn't look at my phone. I just sat there, heart thudding like a metronome on the verge of speeding up. When Lydia walked in, I recognized her instantly. Not from photos, there weren't any, but from the way she carried herself. Like someone holding everything together with duct tape and a deep breath. She wore a navy coat and a knitted scarf that looked handmade. Her eyes scanned the room, found mine, and for a second, we both hesitated, like meeting in real life might somehow make this whole thing more real than we were ready for. But she walked over and sat down. No awkward hug, no scripted icebreaker, just the shared understanding of two people who had been living in parallel nightmares. I almost didn't come, she said, brushing her hair behind one ear. I've never done anything like this before. Me neither, I admitted. This feels like some bad Netflix drama. She gave a tight smile, but there was no joy in it. We talked for over an hour. Not just about Clarabelle and Toby, but about us. The parts of our stories that hadn't been shared through calendar invites and hidden email folders. I learned Lydia was a landscape architect, that she loved old horror films, that she had suspected Toby's late-night workouts for months, but kept telling herself trust meant letting go of control. I told her I used to design indie apps, that I used to write music before Clarabelle said it was an unscalable hobby, that I hadn't felt like a person in my own marriage for a long time. Somewhere in that quiet corner of the world, a plan started to form, not out of revenge, but out of clarity. We didn't want to burn their lives down. We wanted to stop participating in the lie. We wanted to flip the script. And then Lydia dropped something I wasn't expecting. I think Toby's trying to end it. I looked up. With Clarabelle? She nodded. He's been distant. Weird. I think your silence freaked him out. I don't think he expected you to stay quiet after he messaged you. That opened a door in my mind I hadn't walked through yet. What if Clarabelle knew Toby was backing out? What if she was trying to rush the weekend trip to salvage her story, to lock me into the narrative she could still control before it slipped? What if we let them think they're still in charge? I asked slowly. Lydia tilted her head. What are you thinking? I go on the trip. You wait until we're gone. Then you text Clarabelle, not angrily. Just one line. Something that confirms everything without saying it directly. Something she won't be able to ignore. Lydia caught on fast. And that'll make her panic. Exactly. She'll spiral. She'll reach for control. And she'll have no idea I already know everything. It'll force her hand. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclamation. If she wanted to end this cleanly, with her dignity intact, she'd have to sit in the wreckage she made. We finalized the plan. One text. Timed precisely. No theatrics, no drama. Just a truth too sharp to avoid. As we stood to leave, Lydia hesitated. Do you think they ever actually cared about us? She asked. I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't have one, but because I wasn't sure she wanted to hear it. I think, I said finally, they cared more about who we used to be than who we are now. She nodded like that confirmed something she'd suspected all along. We parted ways with no promises. Just mutual purpose. That night, Clarabelle curled into bed beside me and whispered, I'm really glad we're doing this trip. I think it's exactly what we need. I stared at the ceiling in the dark, not blinking. She had no idea. Because in less than 48 hours, she was going to get a message from Lydia that would flip her stomach inside out. And I'd be sitting right beside her, watching every second of her performance collapse. The cabin was beautiful, secluded, tucked away on the edge of a lake that looked like glass in the early morning. Clarabelle picked it because she said we needed to reset. I played my role. I brought the wine, carried the bags, lit the fire. She made dinner the first night, told stories like nothing was wrong, touched my hand across the table like she hadn't drafted an exit strategy behind my back. She had no idea the countdown had already started. The next day, just after lunch, I stepped outside with my coffee and pretended to take a work call. That was Lydia's cue. She sent it at exactly 2:08 p.m. It wasn't dramatic. No confrontation. Just a quiet, nuclear text. I understand now. I just hope Din never sees the full emails. That was it. I stood by the porch railing, pretending to scroll through photos of birds while Clarabelle sat on the couch inside, legs tucked under her, staring at her phone. It buzzed once. She picked it up. I watched the exact moment her eyes stopped reading and started panicking. She blinked, sat upright, checked the message again. Then the paranoia kicked in. Her gaze darted to the window, then back to her phone, then toward the hallway. I waited 5 full minutes before going back inside. She looked up too quickly, like she hadn't decided yet whether to confront or deflect. Her smile was stretched thin. Everything okay? I asked casually, taking off my coat. She nodded. Too fast. Yeah, just work stuff. I nodded. Anything I should be worried about? Her silence lasted a second too long. That was the moment she realized the walls were shrinking. That the version of me she thought she could manage, the quiet, apologetic Denton, wasn't sitting across from her anymore. She didn't confess. There were no tearful apologies, no dramatic explosions. But the rest of the trip was quiet. Her phone stayed face down. Her laughter felt forced. She spent long stretches staring out the window, like she was waiting for something to hit her that never came. And me? I slept better than I had in months. When we got home, I was already packed. 1 suitcase, 1 backpack. I left her a note on the kitchen table. Not angry, just honest. You didn't lose me. You traded me. I just finally realized I was worth more than what you settled for. I moved into a small apartment a few blocks from a local co-working space. Started freelancing again. Reconnected with old clients. Ones I'd ghosted when I didn't feel good enough. I picked up my guitar again. I even started running, which I used to hate. But there's something about watching your own feet carry you forward that makes you believe in yourself again. Lydia and I kept in touch. Not in some dramatic, rebound romance way. Just two people who survived the same storm and helped each other build shelter afterward. We met for coffee every couple of weeks. No pressure. No expectations. Just honesty. It was more than I'd had in years. As for Clarabelle, I don't know how she spun it to her friends. Maybe I left because I was lost. Maybe we grew apart. I don't really care anymore. I stopped needing to control the narrative when I finally stopped being part of hers. It turns out, the best revenge wasn't watching her squirm. It was walking away without needing to look back.